Hello, good day and welcome. Welcome to another BBA video. And in today's video, what we are going to discuss is all about BBA user form. So I hope that you have watched my previous video of this series because some of the function that we will be using in this one is explained in detail on those previous video. So before we get started coding this and using the VBA user form, let me show you first what are we going to build after this video. So as you can see in my screen, I have another workbook. It's a macro enabled workbook. And then I have two worksheets in here. The first one is I named VBA user form where you have an option to click this only button in here. And once you click that, it will show you a user form. I call this user form add profile because it will allow us to add profiles using this BBA controls or user form controls. So this is just an easy tool, a demonstration of how we can use Excel VBA user form. So in this one, you see that we have here a frame, we have labels, we also have text box, and then we also have option or radio button. Then we also have here a drop down or a combo box, and of course a list box where we have an option to select multiple items. And then we also have another list box in here where all the profile that we added should be showing in here as well. And then of course we also have here command button that once we press will trigger some action. And all the data that we will add on this user form will be saved in our worksheet of this workbook because I don't want to make this complicated. We will not be using database on this one. We will just focus on the user form, but at the same time, I'd like to show you or maybe share with you how we can store data from user form into our Excel worksheet. So before we go on coding, let me try to show you how this user form is working. So now we have some data in here, and I'm going to add a new one. Let me think of a name. Maybe we can use James Rio Hello, and then his email, and then we'll choose his department, and then let's select some skills for him, and then let's add it. And then once all the information are supplied, you will see this message box that profile has been added. And when you hit OK, you will see that James is added to our list of profiles. And let's say, for example, I added another one, let's say Donna, and then I did not put the last name, I did not select a gender and department, but I select some skills, and then I hit add. You should see this message box saying that there are some fields that are required and we need to supply those information. So let's say for example the uh, I add the last name, I select gender, I still leave the department blank, and if I hit add, yeah, it will still not allow me to add that profile until I complete all the information. So when I hit add again, we have this message box, and when we hit OK, we have Donna added to our list box. And when I hit close, it will just end our user form. And as I mentioned earlier, all the data or all the profile that we added on that user form will be stored in this worksheet with the name data, and here you will see that Donna and James is added as well. So I hope that everything is clear before we start. So what are we waiting for? Let's start with this one. I will close this one now, and I will create a new Excel. So turn or look for your Excel application, and then just waiting for it. So once your Excel is up, then let's start with saving it this one first. I will save that to my VBA tutorial folder, and then I will name this one VBA. This is our fourth video, and I will just call this user form and make sure that the save as type is set to macro enabled. And now let's hit save. Now this is a macro enabled workbook. So let's start with naming our worksheets in here. I want the first one to be my data, and then this worksheet should contain four columns that will hold all the profile that I will add. So let's name this one first name, this is the last name, this is gender, department, and the skills. And then let me just quick this real fix or fix this. And let me just add some, colors in here. So it will be much better. All right. And then we'll have another worksheet where we will put our button later. We'll just call this user form. And then, yeah, we'll add the button later. So now let's activate our VBA editor by pressing Alt F11 from your keyboard, or if you have the developer enabled in here, you can press Visual Basic button from there. All right. Now we'll start with adding a new user form. On the previous video, we're just using module every time. Now we will be using user form, and this will be the default size of our user form. So before we add anything on this user form, let's start with renaming this user form first so we can easily identify it. So go to the properties, select the user form, and then let's name this one FRM add profile. And then of course we want to change this caption in here. So just go to caption property and let's here add profile. And yeah, let's start with adding a background color for this one. So just go to back color. You can choose the color that you want. I prepared the same color I showed earlier. And now we have a background color in our user form. Alright, so now let's start with adding the control before we do any coding. So this is our toolbox where we have all the available controls that we can use. And if you don't see this on your device, just go to view and then just make sure to click this toolbox button in here. So as I showed earlier, we will try to use all the common tools that we have in here. And yeah, so the first one that we need to add is we need to have here the first name and last name field, but I want them to be inside the frame. So let's start by, adding a frame control. So this is our frame control. Let's just click on that one, and then you will see that the cursor of your mouse will change, and then we can draw our frame in here. And then let's start by changing the fore color of this frame. So go to fore color, select white, and then let's name the caption. Let's name this one username. And then inside this frame, we need to add controls for first name and last name. So we'll start with labels. This is our label control. Again, click that and drag from here. And then let's change the caption of this label into first name. And then it would be better if we you know modify some of the properties of this label. So let's start with font. Let's use a different font. Maybe Arial is good, and then let's use a bold style. And then I think 10 or 11 is the best font for this one. So now we have our first label, and what I'm going to do is I'll just copy this one by pressing Control C and then Control V. So you have here now a label or another label that will just need to change the caption into last name. Okay, we have now the two labels. Now the next step is to add a text box for this item. So text box is this one. So just click that one and then again drag from the user form to the user form. Now we have our text box in here, but I think the size is too much. So let's start by changing the height of this control. Maybe 20 is enough. Yep. And then I want to put it a bit down. So if you're having some challenges dragging this on the desired position that you want, you can use the property tab, so you can easily control it. So for example, from 12, I will put 10, and then you will see that the text box will go up because I subtract some height value. And I guess 9 is much better. Let's try. I put 9 and yep, that one is better. Now I will just copy it, and then okay, maybe I'll just need to drag the label instead. Okay. You can also do the you can also modify the type of label controls. We can say 38 might be, or maybe 40. Yeah, I think 40 is good. Let me just check how this really looks if I run this. Okay, we have first name and last name. I think it's okay now. So let me just, you know, utilize some space in here. And then before we leave this, make sure to rename your text box so we can easily identify it later once we start decoding. So for the first name, I will name it txtf name. It's a good practice to use prefix based on the control, so you know if it's a text box, you can easily identify if it's a text box, if it's a combo box, or if it's a list box. So later we'll encounter some of the prefix I am using in other types of control. So this one is txtf name, and then this one will be txtl name. And if you want to, restrict the number of length that the user should add in here, you can use the max length property. But I will not be using this one for now. But if, for example, you only want to have 15 characters first name, you can just put here 15. So now we have a name for these controls. We can move to the next one. The next one will be gender. So we'll also have it inside the frame. So let's start by dragging a frame in here. And then again, let's change the fore color to white again. And let's change the caption into gender. And then here, what we need is an option button. So this is our option button control. Just drag it from here. And then let's start by changing the name of this control. Let's call it OPT mail. And then of course we need to change the caption into mail. And I think the font should be updated as well. So let's select the same font, Arial. Let's select bold style and then 11. And yeah, I think that's good. And then let's just copy this and then just change the caption into female, and of course the option button name as well. So let's call this one OPT female. And yep, I guess this one is good now. So let's utilize the space again. And if I try to run this, this is how it actually looks. So you can see here if both option buttons are inside in a frame, you won't be able to select both of them because it's an option button. It will only allow you to select one option. Okay, so the next one is department. On my, I think what I showed earlier, it's not inside the frame. So let's just do the same. I will start by adding a label. I think I can copy this one. And then let's just drag it in here. And then we'll just need to change the caption of this label. So let's name it department. And in this time, I need to have a drop down or a combo box where you can select a department. So combo box or yep, is this control. So just click that and again drag to your user form. And we need to, you know, drag it up a bit more. So let's go to the top property again. Maybe 146 is good. Okay, I think 146 top is good. It could be different from your side, so let's just check what is better. So let's name this control CBO department because it will contain all the available department. And then the next step is we have the first name, last name, male department. The last one is just the skills. So I want it to be again inside the frame. So let's rename this one, or let's change the caption to skills. And of course the fore color. And then from here, we'll add a list box. So this is our list box control. Let's just jog that from here. And then of course we need to name this control. Let's name this one LST skills. And yeah, I think that's all for now for this one. And of course, we need to also have another list box in here that will contains all the profile that we will add later. So let's start by adding a frame again, and then let's change the captions to profiles, and of course the fore color should be set to white. And then let's add a list box again, and this time we'll name this list box LST profiles. And this will be a multi-column list box. If you are using Visual Studio before, it's kind of similar. We'll use it similar to the data grid function, but we don't have data grid available in here now, so we will use list box to, represent our data. So first, I have it already renamed to LST profiles. The next is we need to set the column count equals to 5 because we have 5 type of data in here, and then I will set the other property later. So I think the only missing control in here are the button. So the first one is, let's add this is our, no, this is text box. Click this one, the command button, drag it in here, and then we'll name this one CMD add, and of course the caption should be add. And yeah, let's also change the font. We'll use Arial for all. Let's choose bold and 11. And maybe it's better if we add some color in here. I think back color, back color could be a lighter one. Yeah, this one, add. And then let's just copy this and add another button. Let's call this one CMD close. And let's change the caption to close, of course. And let's also change the back color. They should not be the same. So let's just drag it a bit closer to our add button. And these are all the controls that we need for this video or for this activity, for this simple tool. So I hope that you were able to follow everything. If not, just try to go back uh, on the previous part. But I hope you should be able to follow this quickly and easily. So now that we have all our controls, we can start adding some code. So how to start adding some code? So you can double click from this and you will be directed to the user form coding environment, or you can also press right click from here and hit view code, and you will be directed into the same page. Okay, so once you double click from the control, you will notice that if I click on this button, there will be an automatic sub being created that is for that control. Let's try the other control. This list box, you see it's created. If I click on text box, you see that this procedure is also created. But we don't need those for now. Let's focus on the user form. So usually when I am starting to code, I just click from the user form, and this could be the default, and there are other events that you can do in user form like activate, initialize, and well, I'll try to discuss that later if I still have time. Okay, so in our code, let's start. So let me just move that in here. Let's start with declaring our worksheets, those that we will be using later. I guess what we just need is our data worksheet. So I'll declare that as public, so it will be accessible by all the procedure on this user form. So let's name it dim DSH as worksheet. Right, so D stands for data, and then SH is sheet. You can name it to whatever you like and you prepared. And then if you go in this procedure, by putting your cursor in this line, we can select an event from here. So for now, let's select initialize. Okay, so let's remove this one. So what initialize mean is that when the form is show, once the form is up, it will look for the procedure initialize, and whatever code you have in here, that will be triggered. So let's say, for example, I have here a message box, hello. So once I run this form using this button and that user form initialize, you see that it calls this line message box, hello. All right, so that's only what does it mean. So let's start by coding from the initialize procedure. So from here, the first thing that we need to do is to set our DSH worksheet. So to do that, let's say set DSH is equals to this workbook that sheets data. Okay, and then as you can see here, we have controls that should have a data before the user add a profile. So we need to have a list of department and we also need to have a list of skills. So to do that, let's go back to the code. I will add a procedure in here. Let's call it first one sub maybe load department. And then here, let's say with CBO department. Again, you can use control space from your keyboard for the like an IntelliSense of VBA. And then here, let's say add item. What are the departments that you know? IT, item HR, item finance. I don't know. I'm just using items in here, maybe accounting department or utility department. Okay, I think that's all. And then if we run our program, of course, you will not see that. You can only see that if we call that procedure in our initialize procedure. So to do that, just copy this name and then here, let's say call load department. So once I run this again, you will see that we have now a department options in here. The next one is the skills. We need to load some skills. So let's create another procedure for skills. Let's say sub load skills, and then we'll do the same with LST skills and with say that add item. What are the skills that you know? Maybe bookkeeping. How do you spell bookkeeping? Maybe that. Or programmer or a scientist or a superhero. What other skills do you know? Uh, maybe there's an accounting skill as well. Okay, I think this is enough. You can use other skills that you want, but this is just a sample. So again, let's call this procedure from our initialized procedure. Now we have call load skills. I don't know why there's this letter in here. Now we run this and you see we also have now available skills and department. All right, so what should we do next? I think we can start adding data in here and then of course it should go in here. So before we add data, it is always a good practice that you have a validation. You know that before you said that okay, send those data in this worksheet or send this data to somewhere, make sure that the data is clean or all the informations are provided. That's why on my demo earlier, you see that if I miss any information in here, there's a message box saying that there are required fields that doesn't have any information. So to do that, I will create a procedure in here. We'll call it sub validate data. And then I will start by declaring a variable name missing field as string. And then by default, I will give this variable a null value, right? So let's start validating the first control, which is the first name. So I'll say if txtf name that value is equals to null, then missing field is equals to missing field and first name and pp new line. You might be confused why I'm using this, why there's something like this. I will explain that later. Let me just finish all this validation for all field first. Let's do the same with last name. So let's say Alex in the name that value, then missing field is equals to missing field and last name. And then what's the third one? It's a gender. Okay, so for the gender, we can say if OPT male, that value is equals to false. If it's false, meaning it's not selected, and OPT female, that value is equals to false, then well, the same, missing field is equals to missing field, and we'll use gender in here. Okay, so we need to have at least one selected in our option. So if both are not selected, meaning we need to tell to the user that, okay, you missed the gender, make sure to select a gender. That's how it works. Just the same with F name and last name. So later you will see that. The next one is department. So let's say if CBO department, that value is equals to null, then again, missing field is equals to missing field and department and VB new line. Alright, and then if the last one is skills. So, alright, we need skills. Hmm, okay, think we can declare here a public variable skills. So maybe we can say selected skills string. Later it will hold all the selected skills. And then here we need to make sure that there's at least one skill selected because if there's none, then we cannot allow it the profile to be added. So I'm going to declare here a variable, maybe number of skills as integer, and then by default I will give it a value of 0. And then next step is I'm going to loop into that list box. So let's say for a is equals to 0. This I think list starts at 0. Let's see. To LST skills, that list count, no, it should be that list count minus 1 because we start with 0 index. And then let's say if LST skills that selected A, then meaning there's a selected skills. Let's say no skills is equals to no skills plus 1. Alright, and at the same time, we want to concat the selected skills, or we need to put the selected skills into this variable that we just created. So let's say selected skills is equals to selected skills and lst skills that list A. Mhm. And of course, you want to put a comma after that skills. Alright, and then we'll say here that if no skills or number of skills is equals to 0, meaning there's no selected skills, then we'll say missing field is equals to missing field and skills and PB new line. Alright, and well, I guess this missing field, I think it's better if we put or if we declare this outside of this procedure so we can access it later. So let me remove that in here. Okay, I will use Control X and then I'll put that in here and remove this colon. So now I can access it just with the other procedure. And we have now the validation complete. So the next step is this validation should be triggered after we click the add button. So let's go back to our user form and then from here double click from your add button. Now we have the procedure created for the add and with the action of click. So let's say we want to call validate data first and we need to check what happened with the validation. So let's say if missing field is not equals to nulls, then let's put a comment something is missing. So remember earlier we created a variable missing field, and by default we'll give it a value of null. So what will happen is that if there's some missing information or information that was not provided, this missing field will have a value. And from there, we can validate if there's a missing field or none. So if there's a missing field, we'll give a user a message box that saying below fields are required. And we want to concatenate the missing fields, and then we'll use a BB critical icon, and let's put a title BBA004 because again this is our fourth video. So let's save it, and before we proceed further, let's test this one first. So for example, I did not provide any information, and then I click the add button, and then you'll see that it show us all the missing fields. So remember earlier that I said on the code that if first name is blank, then I will concat it to the variable first name, and then I have a new line so that the next missing field will appear on the next line. So that's how my code works. So let's just hit OK, and then let's provide something in here. It's a mail and then HR, and when we click add, you don't see anything because we haven't add any code yet if validation pass. So let's close this one first, and then let's add some code in the else part of our add code. So else meaning missing field is null, everything is there. So let's start adding data. So we need to add the data in our data worksheet. So here the next step is, of course, we need to know first what is the next available row, because as we add more and more data, the next available row is keep on changing. So we need to have a variable. Let's name it next row as long. That will tell us where should we put the data. So next row should be equals to DSH, that range A, and rows that count. Again, this line is I've already explained in the previous video, so make sure to watch those so you can easily understand how this works. That end Excel app row. And then what this line do again is just it finds the last row with value of this specified column. So for example, A, if I run this code now, it will give me 1. Next row will be equals to 1 because uh, row 1 is the last row in column A that has a value. And again, I cannot paste the data in here if it's the live adding of data. I need to paste it on the next row. So in our line of code, we'll need to have a +1. So it will move to the next available row. So now after that, we can now start adding our data or writing our data. I will be using with. So with DSH and with, I'll say that range A and next row that value is equals to our txt fname that value or the first name, and then range b in next row that value is equals to txt allname that value. The next one is gender, so we need to have an if condition in here. Maybe I should put a comment in here for much better. And that is for the username. Next one is for the gender. For the gender we need to use an if condition, like if opt male that value is equals to true, then if it's equals to true, meaning that range 8C, that range C and next row, that value should be equals to male, else, meaning it should be equals to female. Alright, the next one is our department. So put here department, that range D and next row, that value is equals to CBO department that value. And the last one are the skills. Remember earlier we have a variable that that holds our selected skills after we check how many are selected. So we can just easily use that variable. So we can say that range E, and next row that value is equals to selected skills. All right, and yep, let's try this now before we proceed further. So I will click this button again. I will give some data. I will say it's Joe Black. Okay, from the movie I just watched. So it's male. We'll select department and we'll select. Okay, I forgot to turn multi-select. So let's select one for now. I will hit add, and you see that Joe Black data has been added based on what I have selected, male, HR, and scientist. And of course, every time you add the data, you need to make sure that, of course, you have a message box saying, okay, has been added. And at the same time, we want to clear this data so we can add new data without removing the previous data. So let me close this one now, and then let's go back to the code. Before I forget, I'll make sure that the skills list box is selected to multi-select. Should be multi, not single. So you can select multiple items in there. And then here in our add, let's put here a message box that data has or profile has been added. And let's have a BB information icon. And again, it should be VBA04. Alright, and as I mentioned, we also want to have the data cleared, the data that we use to be, cleared after we add it. So to do that, I will add a new procedure. I will call this clear data. So let's start with a username. Let's say txtf name. That value is equals to null. Txtl name. That value is equals to null. Next one is gender. To do that, we'll say opt male. That value is equals to false. Same with the female. That value is equals to false. And then next one is department. So CBO department that value should be null. And last one is skills. So for skill, this is how you clear a multi-select list box. So LST skills that multi-select is equals to multi-single. You need to set this to single first. And then LST skills that value is equals to null. And then you need to return it to multi-select multi. Alright, and what we want is we want to call this procedure after we add the data. So call clear data. Or maybe we want to clear it before the message box. So I'll just move it before the message box line. So make sure to save it. And now let's test it. So we have Joe Black already added. What other name we can use? Maybe Debbie Root, such a pretty name. Yvonne, and then she's a female. And accounting maybe bookkeeping. I'll add a superhero in accounting. So she have three skills, and I press add, and you see the all the data were cleared from the user form, and we also have this message box, and we have all the data added successfully. Okay, so the next thing is we need to have this data showing in our list box in here. We should not be looking in this worksheet. So to do that, let's work on that one. First, let's maximize this. I will set the property of this list box to column head equals to true. So it will give us some header. And then let's give it a default source. So here go to, let's say data, because that's the name of our worksheet where we will source the data from. And then exclamation for exclamation so to call this exclamation character, and then let's say A2 until E2. So now you'll see it automatically adapt the header in here. You need to make sure A2 and E2 because by default it will set A1 as its header. So by default, that will be our row source, but it can't be always that because, as we add more data, the the last row is getting uh, incremented. So let's add a code to refresh our list box for our profile. To do that, let's go to our initialize again, and then I will just add a procedure. I will create a new procedure. Let's call it load profile. And then here, let's say, of course, we need to know what's the last row of the data sheet. So let's declare another variable, lrow, as long. Then let's say lrow is equals to dsh, because that's the variable that represents our data worksheet that range a and rows that count that end xlab that row. And then let's say LST profile, that's the name of the list box for profiles. That row source is equals to, again, data and A2 and E, but this time the the row should be equals to last row. And then we want to call this on the initialize user form so that we will be able to see all the profile that was already added before we start adding new ones. So let's say call load profile. And of course, we also want to add that procedure after we add a new one. So in the add button, let's put that after the message box called load profile. So now let's save this and let's test this one. Excuse me. So what name should we use next? Maybe we can use my name. Ron. I'm a male and I should be in IT department. I'm a programmer and a superhero as well. And now I will add it. You see the data has been cleared and I am added in this worksheet. And once I hit this OK from the message box, you will see me added on this list box. Let's add another one. Let's say James Ryu Helen. That's a friend of mine. And let's try the validation if it's still working. Okay, it's saying me that I need to select a gender and a department. So let's select male and then a department and let's add. And you see that James is also added to our list box. Okay, I think we missed to add a code in the close, so let's do that quick. Let's go to the user form, let's click that, and here you just put end, and that user form will close. So let's try it. It's end and it's close. Okay, so we want to have the user form activated when we click a button from here. So you can add an image that you can download from the internet, but if you don't want to use an image, you can just maybe click view and do not use grid lines, and then you can insert a button in here like a shape is what I suggest. Do not use ActiveX control when adding buttons. So let's try to use this button and then let's give it better colors and look. mm, okay, maybe we can use this yellow color, and then maybe we can name this add profile for now, and let's just fix its font a bit. I think it's not a good one. Let's change the color to maybe blue. Yeah. And then I need to have a procedure that will call my user form. So I press Alt F11 again, and then I will. Okay, maybe I should put the code in this workbook. So double click in this workbook. Let's create a procedure sub show add profile. And then in here, we just only need one line. Let's say frm add profile, which is our user form that show. Just it. And then after you add that, make sure to save. And then from here, right click from the button and then assign macro, and then select that procedure that we just created. Hit OK. Now once we click it, it will activate our user form. And now let's add another one. Donna Kapangpangan. She's a female, of course. Maybe accounting. Scientist, a bookkeeping. Let's hit add, and Donna has been added. And when we close it, we can see that Donna has been added to this worksheet as well. Okay, so I guess that's all for this video, and I will try to upload this macro tool or a simple tool in my Google Drive. So if you want to download it, you can take a look. But I believe I put everything. I tell you everything that you need to know in order to do the same tool as the simple one. So yeah, I hope it helps you for somehow. So I guess this is all for this video, and I'll see what else I can do to, share with you some of the things I know when it comes to VBA. So till then, see you on the next one. Bye for now.